It's springtime. Are you seeing it? You feeling it? Yeah, the azaleas are just really beautiful right now. The dogwood trees are blooming white. The bluebonnets and the red and orange paintbrushes, other wildflowers are growing. It's my favorite time of year. We had a couple of freezes over the winter, and some of the plants, the new growth is coming up from the ground, the lilies. Just a time of rebirth and renewal and connection. And I just love the springtime. On Thursday, we had the vernal equinox, the spring equinox, and that is the time when the day and the night are equal. So we had 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of nighttime, and that marks the beginning of spring. So from the vernal equinox, the sun sets a little earlier every day, and it rises a little earlier every day until we get to the solstice, the summer solstice in June. And this is a time where the birds start migrating northwards, hummingbirds come through, and we just have this rebirth and this renewal. And in the regular Christian calendar, we're still in the time of Lent, which is a very somber time until Easter. But Easter can fluctuate by 35 days. So Easter can be as early as this Sunday, and it can be as late as April 25th. So the Easter, the way we just figure out when Easter is going to be, is it's based on the vernal equinox and the lunar cycle. So Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the vernal equinox. So that's why it moves around so much. So even though in the regular Christian calendar this is still the somber time of Lent, I'm celebrating spring, I'm seeing spring, I'm ready for this time of balance and renewal. And I just love the new growth. So that's where we're at, sort of in time and space in this season where we live. And one thing I've really been enjoying lately is listening to a podcast called Track Your Life. Track Your Life. And it's by a fourth generation safari host in Africa. And he's learned so much from these indigenous trackers. People have been tracking for thousands of years, for the whole history of humanity, to learn from animals and to survive. And so what these trackers do is they really tune into small details. So they'll look for broken branches, they'll look for flattened vegetation, they look for where the dew has been shaken off of plants. So if the surrounding plants all have dewdrops on them, and then there's some plants where the dew has been shaken off, an animal might have passed through that way. And these trackers, they can also interpret the sounds of birds, because the birds will tell them what kind of predator's in the area, how far away that predator is, and what distance, or if that predator's moving and which way. So they're just very attuned to nature. They're attuned to their surroundings and their environment. They just have so much awareness that they offer, that they give. So this Track Your Life podcast, he's not just a safari host. He's very spiritual. He's done a lot of healing work. He's interested in trauma clearing. He's written a book called Cathedral of the Wild. And he's just done a lot of work, ceremonies, rituals, with people all over the world. So he's really bringing this idea of tracking this thousands-year-old practice into presence of what we can apply right now. And as people, we've tracked not just animals, but people have been tracking the sun, the movement of the sun. People track the cycles of the moon. They track the movement of the stars. People track where to find plants for health and healing. We track where to find the ingredients for food and for cooking. So we use tracking in a lot of different ways in our life. And this is just a way to invite us to apply it. So how can we track our own lives? How can we gain awareness of our own lives? We can tune into information. It involves going into the unknown, because when we track, we do so without certainty. We don't know where we're going to end up. We don't know the destination. We don't always know the result. We just know to set out on the path, to say yes to the path, to take that next step, and to just keep tuning in to the clues and gaining awareness. So it involves accepting uncertainty and seeking what is calling to us. And also staying humble, because there's a lot of obstacles that can come up, different things can happen when we're tracking, when we're seeking the path. And so just to approach it with humility, because we don't have all the answers. We want to stay open. So developing awareness of what makes us feel present and awake and aware and alive and curious and open. And tracking also is the understanding that the journey often involves losing the track. So it's very common when people are tracking to lose the path, and to be okay with that. And maybe it involves backtracking a little bit, or just trying things out. Try going left, try going right. Sometimes they'll make a half moon, a semicircle, and just see what they notice. So again, some uncertainty, and being okay with sometimes losing the path. That's okay. It also involves investigating the path of not here. So we gain clarity by investigating and trying things and realizing, well, it's not here. It's not here. It's not here. Well, maybe it's over here. So it all provides valuable information, investigating the path of not here. So this author in Cathedral of the Wild, he's, like I said, done a lot of ceremonies and rituals and learning from different people. And what he's discovered is that trauma healed becomes medicine. Trauma healed, when we do our own work and we heal whatever's divided or fragmented or feel separated in our own lives, then we're providing medicine for ourselves, for our families, and for the world. And he says, there is nothing more healing than finding your gift and sharing it. There's nothing more healing than finding your gift and sharing it. And he actually calls it a kind of activism. It's taking action in the world. Being an activist is exploring your own life and finding, what am I here to do? What is fulfilling? What helps me feel awake and alive? How can I best be of service? So here's the approach, sort of the how-to. It's finding harmony. It's finding that flow, that non-resistance. It's finding that resonance. Listening to what is calling. Listening to what is calling to you. Tuning in, being aware, being awake, being present. And the best way is awareness without attachment. Without being attached to the outcome, without being attached to the result, and without taking things personally. Just being open, curious, open without the attachment of, this is exactly where I want to end up. Well, I may not know that. I just have to start out and keep following the tracks. So it works best when we're working from inner stillness, when we're working from that capital S silence, when we have that clarity of presence, the clarity of mind. So we can be like an empty canvas, that we can have that openness without the noise and the distraction. So here's some ways to practice. Just go sit on a park bench and just engage your senses. What am I hearing? What am I seeing? Who's coming in? What animals? What little critters are running around? Just trying to be really present with whatever you're seeing, whatever's going on, engaging the senses. Another thing you can do is just look at a particular plant. Just go out in nature and just focus on one plant. And just see what happens. Just see what's going on there. Another way is just pick a little plot of ground, like even just a square foot, and just try to observe everything you can about what's going on. How many plants are growing? Are there little ants? Are there little doodle bugs? Or just what is going on in that little patch of ground? So it's just, again, a way of tuning in and honing our presence and honing our awareness. Another thing we can do is look at things from a different angle or look at things from a different perspective. For example, if you're looking at a house plant, you're probably often looking down at it. But if you pick up that house plant and you hold it up and you look up at it, it just changes what you might notice. It changes the angles, the perspectives, just getting a new way of looking at things. And one way we track is we track conversations. Especially if we're practicing deep listening and someone's really venting or they're expressing a lot of thoughts, it can take a lot of presence and awareness to say, what are they saying underneath the surface? What are they feeling? What are all the feelings that are coming up for them in this conversation? It's a form of tracking energy and words and language. One of my sisters has 4 children, and they're all pretty close in age. And when they were little, she had an effective parenting practice that I observed, that I appreciated. And that is, when the kids were in some minor squabble, and one of the kids would run up and tell on another kid, she would acknowledge what was going on for that child. She would say, "That must have hurt. That sounds frustrating." But she wouldn't intervene, and she wouldn't make one of them bad or wrong. She wouldn't fuss at them. She would let them feel validated, let them feel heard and seen, and then they would go off and work it out. They would figure it out. They'd go back to playing and figure it out. So it's, again, a way of listening, sort of tracking what's going on. Do I need to intervene here, or am I better just to be a compassionate witness? It's effective to be a compassionate witness in this world. And I do like to stay informed. I dip into the news pretty much every day. Just kind of like to know what's going on in the world, and there's a lot. There's a lot, and sometimes it feels disorderly, sometimes it feels chaotic. And one thing I observe, I was an English major in college, a literature major, so we studied a lot of literature. And one thing I learned from Shakespeare's tragedies is that early on in his career, sometimes the breakdown just had to do with miscommunication. In Romeo and Juliet, Romeo doesn't get a letter from a messenger, so he doesn't know that Juliet's still alive. I mean, it's just a miscommunication. But in the more mature tragedies, the disorder, the breakdown, the dissolution comes from the character flaws of the main character. A blindness, a lack of awareness. For example, King Lear, pride, arrogance, stubbornness, seeking power without wisdom, not being able to listen, not having any awareness of how people are affected or how they're reacting, and being subject to misinformation and lies and things like that. So in observing the world and observing some of prominent people in the world, can kind of track how their own inner flaws and blindness lead to these results, lead to these outcomes, and they're not even aware of it. And people are affected. You know, sometimes there is disorder that definitely affects people, but you can kind of see people breaking down ultimately just from their own lack of tracking their lives, lack of tracking how am I affecting people, how are people responding, how are people reacting, how is this going to affect people, just blindly arrogant, for example. So as human beings, we can be undone by this inner blindness. Until we learn to see the eternal truth, until we learn to pursue the universal wisdom, live by the golden rule, and treat other people the way we want to be treated. acknowledging other people's humanity, acknowledging their sovereignty, seeing the worth and the dignity of all people. And that's something we can track. Am I having this effect on the world? So how can I better track my life? And that is, again, not just allowing miscommunication or unconscious or subconscious triggers to affect my life and what's going on, but to live consciously directed by conscience. To live consciously directed by conscience. And that again involves the stillness, the silence, the harmony, the presence, so that we can hear the divine guidance and follow it. So at this time of spring renewal and abundance and the resetting, a time of equilibrium and balance and the equinox, when we tap into that enchantment, when we can feel enchanted with life, several things happen. We tend to value simplicity instead of accumulation. We tend to value simplicity instead of drama and chaos and disorder and noise. We tend to reconnect with the rhythms and the cycles of nature when we live with enchantment and wonder and awe. And we feel compelled to create rather than just consume. I think we're all naturally creative in many different areas of life. And so that creativity will just blossom and come forth and be revealed when we allow ourselves to live with enchantment. And we often look for ways of being of service. It's a way of giving our gifts, revealing our fulfillment, being who we came here to be. Basically, we stop fighting ourselves, we stop fighting each other, and we just start living differently. We show an example of how to live differently in this world, and we give other people permission to do that. We restore joy, we restore compassion, and it's a pathway. It's a form of activism. People who desire to connect with and restore the world have been called the largest unnamed social movement in history. This comes from an author named Paul Hawkins. He wrote Blessed Unrest. And he was traveling all around the world giving talks, and he just noticed that afterwards people would come up with him and they'd give him a card and they'd say, "This is what I'm doing." And he'd get a collection of cards, and it just kept accumulating, and he had hundreds and then thousands of people all over the world making their world a better place in small groups, in big ways. And so that's why he started calling it the largest unnamed social movement in the world, because there's no leader, there's no central bureaucracy, there's no hierarchy, there's no club to join that is overarching all of it. It's just all these people locally making a difference. And again, in some global ways too, but it's just an unnamed social movement that's gathering energy. And we're part of that. I know each and every person here is part of that, and gaining clarity and awareness and being fulfilled and being of service in the world. So tracking our own unique gifts offers medicine. Tracking our own unique gifts allows medicinal properties, medicine to just flow forth from us naturally, organically into the world. Living a life of enchantment enhances life and leads us to what Reverend Kara likes to call inspired action, so that we take inspired action from our divine guidance, from our beingness, from our oneness with the divine, and not from our personal preferences or prejudices or pettiness. And that, I think, is the goal, to just gain awareness, gain presence, track our lives, be fulfilled, follow the clues, and see what unfolds as us, through us. Amen? Amen. Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead to the next slide now. Because you were going to do the offering.
I'm doing the offering.
You do the
There's
offering.
ways to give.
There's ways to give.
You can text to give. You can call. You can send something in an envelope.
You
that
can
still
send
works.
it by railway. You can send it by train.
You could. You could.
I don't care how it gets here. Just get it here if you can.
And how good it is to support a community, to be part of a community. And if you're not yet in a community, I don't know how you're doing life, honestly, without people who are supportive and nurturing and who know your name and who notice when you don't show up and who notice when you're here. And if you like hugs, it's a great place to be in community. I don't know how people do life without a spiritual community, honestly. So thank you for who you are and what you do in this world and the light that you are. And let us bless our offering together with this prayer. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God.
Thank you, Reverend Shirley.